let's get into racket number one. The looming eviction crisis is overblown. This is an Inman article which we'll link up, and it's is this a considered an opinion piece? Yes, it is. It's an opinion piece.
It's lengthy too. I mean, this took reading.
This does take reading. It is an article on Inman.com, so it certainly would take some reading, and of course we will link it up. So this is an opinion piece by Andrew Sirios, and let's get into what some of his thoughts are. Although there's a lot of chatter about an eviction tsunami or an eviction apocalypse, whenever the final federal moratorium ends, the data does not support that fear. Here's a deeper dive. Let's get into it. And right before we get into it, you do hear this a lot, mostly from people who are wannabe real estate investors. Okay, and this is where I'm going with this. You don't have a lot of the sophisticated real estate investors saying, "Oh, I'm going to wait for this, eviction tsunami to open up so I can score deals." It's the people who have never bought a deal in their life, and they're waiting or hoping, crossing their fingers to steal something. What do I mean by that? I mean, we've talked about BlackRock buying up $6 billion worth of single-family homes as investment properties to rent because they know that rents are soaring. There's actually a New York Times article going all the way back to March of this year talking about a $60 billion housing grab by Wall Street. Hundreds of thousands of single-family homes are now in the hands of giant companies, squeezing renters for revenue and putting the American dream even further out of reach because they believe in these investments and they're buying right now. They're not waiting for an eviction crisis. They're buying now, top of the market, and oftentimes, and we've talked about this on the show a whole bunch, they're buying above market value. So it's those onesies and twosies that are like, "Oh, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait." When you wait and you never get in, you're going to miss the market. There's no such thing as timing the market. What happened in 2008 is not what is necessarily happening now. It's actually nothing even similar to what's happening now because we know for certain we're not going through a mortgage crisis. So
right?
Yeah. So it's very different. But let's jump back into some of Andrew's thoughts. So he's pointing towards questionable surveys. Okay, so it's been going on since the pandemic. Obviously, there's been this, eviction ban. You've heard that in the headlines, and you hear a lot of people like basically being asked if on these surveys if they are, at risk of losing their house, right? So he's pointing towards surveys that are, I don't know. Here's one. June 2020, an Aspen Institute said between 19 and 23 million people are at risk of eviction. This July, Aspen Institute, same survey, said 15 million people at risk of eviction. But the big question is, what does at risk of eviction mean? Now, 15 million people being evicted, that would be a lot. That would be significant. That would be a concern because we know that we're only about between 3 to 5 million homes short in this country of supply. If all of a sudden, and 15 million people being evicted doesn't mean 15 million homes hit the market. But if 15 million people were evicted overnight, there would be some changes in the market. But obviously, being at risk and evicted are two different things. But he's arguing that 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So you could argue that 50% of Americans are at risk of being evicted just based off of the fact that they're living paycheck to paycheck. But the facts are the majority of those people are getting up and going to work every single day. The National Multifamily Housing Council does a monthly survey of apartment owners covering just shy of 12 million units and found that 95.6% of their tenants paid rent in June of 2021. This is down slightly from 95.9, so 0.3% difference for June of 2020. But that's very high, and obviously, it's 12 million units. So you're talking, I don't know, what would 4% of 12 million be, Nicole?
Not. You want me to do the math?
It wouldn't be millions of people at risk
No,
of being
absolutely
evicted.
not.
So
Nope.
there you go with kind of the
That's
surveys.
what you do. That's when you throw me the ball. That's when you're like, and it's your turn to talk. Do math in your head.
Do
Do
you have the
math in your head.
calculator? You are the calculator.
Jesus Christ.
You've got the calculator out, don't you?
That was like a hard ball. That wasn't even a hey, why don't you join the conversation?
What do you think
that
is 4%?
Let's make it look like a bigger ass.
All right,
let's
so
throw her the math.
what are your thoughts on him pointing out the surveys? What would you think about the surveys?
Well, I mean, I think obviously it's all headlines. I mean, and I think that it is important that he is bringing that to everybody's attention, that it is a headline grabber. It's interesting, though, too, because, again, you're talking about June of 2020. In my mind, that's still sort of like the beginning. So, I appreciate the fact that he's bringing sort of the counter side to it. Obviously, as we continue to sort of jump through each of these topics here in this article, you'll really start to understand that, again, people are paying, and again, he even sort of goes a little bit deeper into, I'm a landlord. I would much rather sort of figure it out with my tenant than kick them out. So,
and that's again, another option he talks about.
Yeah. I mean, we can keep moving through, but I'm still reeling over the math problem.
Oh, well, I can figure it out real quick for you. I do have a calculator.
No, I feel great about it. I mean, it's over now.
12 million times 0.04, which would be 4%. That's 480,000 units that weren't paying their rent, but they could be vacant too. So you've got that too. And that's right. Actually a typical. You take a big multifamily complex. That's like your typical vacancy rate, like 4% right. or whatever. So There you go. Not a big problem now. It doesn't get into this in this article, but there are other sources that you can look up that talk about a lot of these evictions that are filed right now and that are waiting for a ban in many cases to be lifted so that they can go ahead and evict are well below or in units or in homes that are well below the median price point right now in this country, which is about $350,000 or more, depending on the area. Okay, so it's not like and what we've seen get really bought up. I mean, think about all the second homes that were bought in the last 18 months. Think about all these higher price homes. We saw prices accelerate. Median price points $350,000. It's not like there's a lot of those homes that are waiting to evict somebody. And so that being said, if it is below median price points, that inventory, if it did hit the market, would get scooped up in a heartbeat, whether it's BlackRock, whether it's Zillow, or whether it's that local investor who's waiting for a deal. Those deals would immediately, or the first-time home buyer, they would immediately sell if they hit the market. Yeah. Also, part of this, it's not in this article either, and then we'll get back into this article here. But also National Association of Realtors, Nicole, you saw that they sued to have this eviction ban lifted to protect homeowners, to protect real estate investors, landlords. Mm-hmm. I don't think they made it too far, but they are, the courts struck them down. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
You did not see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so our National Association of Realtors did that. Now they're not having much luck with that in the courts, and obviously there's a lot of states that have just said we're not lifting this at all. So anytime soon. So there you go. It's kind of a tough battle. All right, going back into this, eviction filings are not up. So that's an interesting stat, which would contradict, to your point, Nicole, the headlines that hey, there's going to be this eviction crisis. The eviction labs at Princeton University. I'd love to go to that lab. That sounds like a lab I would like. The eviction labs?
The eviction labs?
The eviction labs.
Well, click on it. Click on it. It hyperlinks you someplace else.
Yeah, it's a evictionlab.org. In a typical year, landlords file 3.7 million eviction cases. So they've got a whole bunch of data on, we should really be looking at this. Everybody,
well, Connecticut's in here.
Evictionlab.org. Everybody should be looking at this. This is interesting. Okay. Maybe we'll go back to that. So anyways.
Tracking 6 states, yeah.
Oh, just 6 states?
Right now, it is tracking data in 6 states. Yep.
Okay, so at Princeton University, it's a pro-tenant department that monitors evictions across the country. So like I just talked about National Association of Realtors suing to lift the eviction ban. They would be pro-homeowner, the people that actually own the real estate, that took the risk to make the investment. The eviction labs at Princeton University is pro-tenant. Okay, so there you go. Monitors evictions across the country. Right now, it is tracking, like you said, 6 states: Connecticut, Delaware, Indiana, Minnesota, Missouri, and New Mexico. Interesting enough that they're not doing Jersey, even though they're in Jersey. Kind of a weird mix there, but I guess a good mix.
Definitely a weird mix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Looking at the data from those 6 states, there's no evidence of any sort of major uptick in filing. So this is interesting because Minnesota and Connecticut have statewide eviction moratoriums that have stayed in place alongside the federal ban the entire time. So you would think that in those 2 states, you'd have a potential for eviction filings to rise, waiting for the ban to be lifted. If people in those 2 states were like squatting, like, I'm not just going to pay. I can just,
right.
I'm collecting unemployment, but you know what? I've got the right not to pay you, so I'm not going to pay you. That type of scenario, which there are a lot of landlords that are saying that that's what's happening to them. So, but the data is not showing that in those 2 particular states or this grouping of 6 states. That's interesting. You don't seem interested by this topic at all, Nicole. You seem very uninterested in the eviction ban crisis.
Well, because I'm interested. It's again, like I said from the very beginning, this is a really long article. It goes into a lot of different things. Again, you
don't like long articles. You're going to love The Marketeer. You picked it out.
No. It's very helpful, and I think that it's a great conversation to be having. I do agree with everything that you're saying because, again, if people are waiting for deals, and to be quite honest, I'm not even so certain that landlords are then going to be flipping their house and selling it once these tenants are out. I mean, again, keep it. Like refi it, money's cheap, maybe they've already done that during this to like pull some cash out to keep them afloat. I guess the whole thing is just very interesting to me that people are thinking that once they're able to kick these tenants out, that they're then going to sell. Because to be quite honest, we've seen lots of single family homes and even multifamily homes go on the market where people have to assume these renters. I've seen multiple situations too where the buyers are even paying these tenants to move out, tens of thousands of dollars to get them out so that they can move in. Or again, if it's like an in-law, and again, we're seeing a lot of people coming in from the city, like moving into these waterfronts, and some of them have in-laws. Again, they're paying people to get out. So again, the whole crisis thing clearly has been a headliner because I feel like a lot of investors, and again, even if they're just onesies and twosies, are figuring out ways to like get around this and to keep these properties. And I don't see in my mind any reason or intent of them to then sell once these tenants are able to be evicted, if they ever are.
The real sad story, the real crime, the real criminal case in all of this, in my opinion, is the fact that there is $45 billion of taxpayer money that the government has given out to the states for rental assistance, and less than 10% of that money has been allocated to landlords and tenants that actually truly need the money. The states are sitting on this federal money, which is not their money. It is taxpayers' money. This is stolen money that is just sitting there, not being used for its purpose. That should be the headline.
Right.
Of course, nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about an eviction crisis. Well, that is not happening.
Yeah. Right. I agree. I mean, because there is help. There is certainly help.
But it's very difficult and almost impossible for tenants to get that help. I'll do a quick Google of how much has been, as of about a month ago, it was less than 10%. It was down at around 6%. Has actually been used, has been distributed. How much rental assistance has been distributed? This is showing me just Florida. I want the whole state. Oh boy, that's
Wait,
gonna
you
be a
mean
tough
the whole
one.
country? You want
I want the whole country. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want Florida. Billions in government aid is available. CBS News. Here's how to get it 2 weeks ago. Maybe this will tell. Only 10 million. And this says. Oh, that's a different state too. All right, so 46 billion. What did I say? 45 billion.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, so
it
this
does say in here.
This is CBS News. This
It says 45 billion in this article.
and I'm looking at CBS News. It says 46 billion. So we're pretty close. And the emergency federally specially awarded for the purpose of, rental assistance. Barely 10% has been used. This is according to CBS News as of 2 weeks ago. So barely 10%. So it's now just hit about 10%. The money is not getting out fast enough. And so why would we not get the money to the people that need it and then lift this eviction ban? Give them the money that's been allocated. Okay, you took $46 billion from taxpayers. Give it to the people that actually need it. Maybe they can't prove who needs it. Maybe nobody needs it. Maybe that's the whole point here. Nobody needs the money. Maybe that's why it's sitting there. This is unbelievable. All right, so my opinion would lie with Andrew, who wrote the article, very long article, like Nicole said, which we'll link up, that we are not going through an eviction crisis. There will be pent-up evictions, no question about that. There is also a need for rental housing, as well as, if homes hit the market for buyers. So it's not going to create some type of inventory glut. People that are thinking an eviction crisis is going to equal a deal for them. To Nicole's point, if I own the property, a rental property, and I need to evict somebody once I get them out, I'm just happy that I can go get, a new tenant, a qualified tenant, and start making my return on my investment. Right. I do feel bad for the property owners that are never going to recoup this money, because you can't get blood out of a stone. You can take them to court, but
of course,
good luck with that.
Well, that's also the bottom line that they're talking about here too, is that evictions are so expensive. So it's like, do you continue, to sort of dig yourself a deeper hole, or again, do you just ask them to leave? Maybe just give them the money to leave, or again, do you work it out?
There's a Fox Business article I just saw the other day, and I'll just read it off really quick before we move on to the next racket. Rent payments are higher than mortgages in these cities. They've got 10 cities listed out. Memphis, Tennessee, Miami. So that means in Miami, rent is higher than buying. So it's still a deal in a market that is accelerating so much in Miami to buy than it is to rent. Typical rent is $2,249 in Miami, where the monthly mortgage is $1,727, a difference of over $500 in Miami. Atlanta is one of these cities. Birmingham, Alabama, Tampa, Indianapolis, Orlando, Charlotte, Oklahoma City, and Detroit. All 10 of those cities, it is higher to rent. Rent payments are higher, that is, than to obtain a mortgage.
That doesn't surprise me. That surprise you? It surprises you? It doesn't surprise me.
No, but it also, and I know we're getting way off topic here, it speaks to why, these prices have gone up on buying real estate. It's why BlackRock is buying it at the top of the market. These are the new numbers, folks. The market, the values of these homes are not going to fall off a cliff. If you're waiting for that, you're going to miss your opportunity to be invested in real estate. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this short clip from The Real World, click here for another one.
Or if you like the full episode, click here.